This is a Porsche M48.50 engine that I just pulled out of this Cayenne Turbo. It's a 4.5 litre twin turbo petrol V8 engine and it's supposed to have 444 horsepower. This one, however, does not. You see, I bought this car for just £450. That's scrap money. It was parked up in 2019 and by the time it arrived to me, it looked like this. Nice. But it gets worse. Just listen to the noise that this engine makes when it was in the car and running. Now there's something you need to know about these engines, and that is that they absolutely love to eat themselves. They suffer from something called bore scoring, which is basically where the pistons like to take chunks out of the cylinder walls. Now, I previously put a camera down a couple of these spark plug holes, and I'm sure that I can see the bore scoring. And the bore scoring is what causes that knocking noise you heard. That means this engine needs a full rebuild. But in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig into this engine. I'm going to tear it down into 1,000,000 pieces and we're going to fully assess the damage. I'm also going to try and get some quotes from some specialists to see what they would charge to rebuild this engine. But before we get into any of that, we need to go back about 5 hours to when this engine was still in this car. Ugh. Now, if this engine is suffering from bore scoring, which is basically the piston just rubbing up and down against the cylinder and taking gouges out of it, taking chunks out of the cylinder wall, you'd expect there to be metal in this oil. At least I would anyway. Let's see what we've got. Right, one thing I can tell you about this oil is that you can hear the way that's pouring out of there. It's lost a lot of its viscosity. It's very, almost watery. Now it's not a magnetic, what's-it-a-majig, the drain thinger, you know, this thing. So there's no metal on the end of it. Not that there would be anyway, because it's an aluminium block. But if I just dip my finger in there, it's not immediately obvious there's metal. I didn't see any chunks of metal come out, and this doesn't look sparkly. Let's get this filter out. I missed the placement of the drain, so that's just gone all over the floor. It's going to be one of those days, isn't it? I've only just started. So hello Mr. Wasp, what are you doing? So this oil filter does have metal in it. That's the first thing I'm seeing here. Go away, go away. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but there is without doubt quite largish chunks of metal in here, in every bit of this oil filter. Look, so I'd say that there is bore scoring and this is the metal that has been displaced. So it did look as though this car was parked in a puddle when it arrived to me, on account of all of the moss and the moisture everywhere. So you can see it is crusty in here, but it's probably not as bad as what you might have thought it was going to be like. So all of the, you know, it's all scabby on the outside, but it's all absolutely solid metal. I mean, who knows what it's like if you were to actually pull off all of the plastic, something I'm not going to do, but you know, not that bad. I've seen a lot worse. This is pretty standard from what I can tell for a car in the UK that's this old. So I've got to get this engine out. Now, I did initially think that the way to do it, which is a way you can do it, is to pull the front of the car off, the bumper and the slam panel and the radiators and all of that, and then take the engine out through the front of the car with the car down. But then I came across this image on one of the forums, and so it very much looks as though this whole engine and gearbox can come down on the subframe. Now, I've never done an engine removal like that before, and I don't have any instructions. I'm literally just diving into this head first and seeing how bad I get it. I mean, as ever, literally just diving in head first. Now, I know there's a load of you wondering, why am I even bothering to do this? Well, one of the reasons is that I actually bought this car for my long-suffering other half, Naomi. We were at a car show a few weeks ago, and she saw one of these cars, and she said, "Oh, I quite like that. I'd have one of those. They're cool." And you need to know that without Naomi, this channel simply wouldn't exist. So I really want her to have one of these cars. Okay, I get that, but why would I buy such a terrible version? Well, I'm on a mission to save as many of these cool old cars from being scrapped and parted out as possible. So basically I thought I could kill two birds with one stone. And then the third reason that I'm doing all of this is because I am not a trained mechanic. I'm just teaching myself how to work on cars as I go, project by project. Don't be confused by all of this, the workshop and the lift. This is just as a result of doing YouTube. So I thought digging into a complex engine like this would be interesting and informative for me, a learning experience. So I thought if that was the case, it might also be for you too. Okay, so a couple of notes before I get started. There is no way in a million years that if I do rebuild this engine, or if I even fit this car with a replacement engine, whatever, I'm going to have to get some kind of trolley or table on wheels in order to get this engine back in the way it came out. Because there's no way on earth I'm going to have to put this engine back down like this stationary and then line everything up and move it. You know what I mean? I need some fine adjustments. So that's something that I'm going to have to worry about. And then the other thing to note, of course, is that, you know, this is a big engine. Well, I mean, I don't think it's any bigger than any other twin overhead cam V8 engine. It is quite wide. I just measured it. The width of it is just over 30 inches. And I think for reference, if you're looking at a Chevy LS, they seem to come in, I just had a look, anywhere between kind of 23 to 26 inches wide. So they're a fair bit narrower, and of course that's because they don't have the overhead cams. And I think that's probably also why they're so popular to put in all sorts of applications. They're just that much narrower. And then the other thing to note about this is that it's very busy. You've got the alternator here underneath this side, and it's kind of, you know, when you look at it, it's actually quite square. It's all packed in. So yeah, the alternator's in there. You've got the AC compressor, and I think that's the power steering or whatever that is, all in there. Makes it quite a square design. And then of course, if you come around to here, you can see this is one of the turbos there. The other one is on the other side in the same position. But there's a lot. There's a lot of these metal hoses and pipes, and if we come around the back, an absolute rat's nest of the wiring loom and vacuum lines and just heater things, and there's just all sorts of stuff going on. So for an engine that has 175,000 miles on it, I mean, from the outside it doesn't look too bad. So where I want to start is with all this kind of rat's nesty stuff. I want to take as much of this off as possible. Do you ever catch a glimpse of yourself in a mirror or in a photo and go, oh wow, I didn't realise that part of me had gotten so bad? I do that frequently when editing these videos, when I notice my hairline. It feels like I'm becoming progressively balder each week. And did you know that by age 50, 50% of men experience some kind of hair loss? I didn't know that either until I was told by the good folks at Manual, who are sponsoring this video. Manual is the UK's men's healthcare company, challenging the outdated notion that real men shrug their shoulders and carry on. And let me tell you from personal experience, hair loss comes at you really quite quickly. This is me, not that long ago. But you know one of the best ways to prevent this happening from you? Early intervention, and that's where Manual's complete hair loss plan can help. It's a powerful treatment that's proven to promote and stimulate hair growth. It also increases blood flow around your follicles. And by all accounts, it's powerful stuff. Here are some before and after photos from their patient gallery. I'm seeing some amazing results here. Not only that, but they have great Trustpilot reviews. It's incredibly easy to get started. They have a quick self-assessment on their website which will recommend the best treatment for your needs. And you can buy from Manual with confidence. They offer ongoing support with their clinicians, it's UK licensed medication, and you can cancel your subscription at any time. So if you want to join more than 500,000 men regrowing their hair, you can get ahead of the game with Manual's all-in-one hair treatment. Click the link in the description and use my code VIABLE55 to get 55% off your first order. And a massive thank you to Manual for sponsoring this video and help keeping this channel viable. Right, so that's my first stab at getting a load of the stuff off. It's a little bit tedious. What I can do now is I can start to remove the cylinder head covers. Oh, I don't know what material this is. Is it just plastic? Oh yeah, they're just plastic. I was going to say it's very light. Alright, so these cam lobes look lovely actually. They don't look bad at all in the slightest. There's no pitting, there's no scoring. They all look delightful. And then this in here, I'm assuming this is the variable valve timing. I mean, there's nothing wibbly wobbly or anything like that. Also, I finally bought myself a compressor. Long time viewers will know I'm now three odd years into this, just bought myself a compressor. Ah, yes! How handy is that? Now, all four of these spark plugs are fine-ish. They are quite dark already. These spark plugs are fine because these are all brand new. I had to put 4 spark plugs just in this side in order to drive the car to the workshop. So this is what they look like after 5 miles and about 10 minutes of idling. Right, and one thing that I'm doing right now is a leak down test. Ideally you want to do a leak down test, I think, with the engine in the car and with it warm. And the reason you want it warm is because all of the materials, all of the metals are going to have expanded properly, and you get a more accurate reading. But I couldn't do this in the car, so I'm doing it now cold. And I've got it plugged into this front cylinder here on the left hand bank. This is actually cylinder 5. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can see on my gauge there that we've got 10% losses in this cylinder. So what that means is that the piston rings are ringing, the valves are valving, everything in there, the head gasket's good, everything in there is looking nice in that cylinder at least. Now the 2 trouble cylinders that I know of are this one here, 6 and 7. I did a compression test on this engine in the previous video when it was warm, and I was getting low readings on these 2. So it would be interesting to see if any of that's changed, because I then did drive the car and maybe the rings came back around. This is a good health check for an engine, and apparently from what I can work out, 10% loss in one of the cylinders is actually a pretty good result. So I'm going to keep doing this down down this bank, and then I'll check on the other side and I'll let you know what the results are. This is actually the first time I've ever done a leak down test, in case you couldn't tell. So this is as much of a learning for me as it is going to be for some of you guys. Right, so that's the entire engine tested, and the results are kind of in line with what I thought. So here's what we've got. Cylinder 1 has a 20% loss, cylinder 2 5% loss. Now I actually tested that 3 separate times because I didn't believe that it was 5. Kept giving me 5. 3 is 25%, 4 10%, and then we get into the trouble side. So these, so 5, 6, 7, 8. That's these cylinders over here. These are the ones that I put the camera down and saw the bore score in. In particular, I saw bore score in cylinder 6 and 7. So number 5, we've got 35% loss. Cylinder 6, 30, 7, 30, and then 8, 10. So these 3 cylinders, so I didn't put the camera down this one. The reason I didn't do a full camera test is because I borrowed a camera from a garage and they needed it. I borrowed it for just a couple of minutes and they needed it back straight away, so I didn't get the chance to do all of the cylinders. But I know these 2 are bad, so it looks like also we might have some kind of scoring then on cylinder 5, because that's actually giving me the worst result. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just call around some engine builders. I'm going to call a couple of specialist Porsche engine builders and see if anyone can just kind of offer any kind of guidance or advice, or basically tell me whether they can they can fix this engine. So I mean, here goes nothing. I've got a list of specialists here in the UK, and I'm just going to call them one by one, starting with this company, Hartech, who apparently are the absolute go-to people for Porsche engine rebuilds.
You're through to Hartech. Please press 1 for engine.
Hiya, I've got a 2004 Porsche Cayenne, and didn't know if you guys offered any kind of engine rebuilds.
We don't on the Cayenne, my darling, no.
No, nothing at all?
No, the SUVs, we only deal with the sports 911s.
Yeah, okay, no worries then.
So sorry, sweetheart.
No, that's alright, thanks a lot.
Alright, darling.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, strike 1. Hiya, I don't suppose you offer any kind of engine rebuilds for Cayennes, do you?
Not really. What are you thinking? Have you up on sort of explode or?
Yeah, kinda. So I didn't know if there was any kind of options to, bore it out and sleeve it or something like that.
I mean, Hartech are probably your guys.
They just told me they don't deal with these.
Yeah, I mean, with the best will in the world, whatever we did, if we took the engine out and it needed barrels and not barrels on those, but if it did need that kind of work, you're probably going to be spending 15 grand plus. Depends how much you like the car, really. What's it worth?
What's it worth? Not 15 grand.
Yeah. Whichever way you do it with us, it will be big money.
Yeah, alright, fair enough. I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, good luck with it.
Yeah, will do. Thanks a lot, mate.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers, bye.
Cheers, bye.
15 grand. Okay. Next company on the list. Wow. 15 grand. 450 pounds this car cost me.
Please press.
Hiya, I've got a 2000.
No, it's not a job that we do, I'm sorry.
No. Do you know anyone who does?
I don't know.
No.
Sorry, I can't help you there.
No. Alright, mate, no worries.
Cheers.
Bye. Nobody wants to touch these engines. So they're the big guys in the UK that deal with Porsche engines, and they were very quick to get off the phone with me. Right, now all I'm going to do is just kind of get after it. I need to remove the intake manifold, the fuel rails, all of this front auxiliary stuff needs to come off, the power steering, the AC, the alternator. We'll come back to the camshafts and all of this variable valve stuff, and probably the turbos, I don't know. I really don't want to, but I might have to cut this metal pipe. So this is the oil line for this left-hand turbo, and you can see where this is the right-hand turbo. It comes into this cooler here. This one came out just fine. This one will not come out, and I can't get to the other end of it because that's in the turbo and I just can't get in there. I cannot get in there. And this is like the last thing that's preventing me from taking all of the turbo out. That's hot, unsurprisingly. So I've heated it up more than you can imagine, tried to quench it, I've hit it, I've sprayed all the penetrant in it, and it's just about to round off. So there's nothing else I can try. Oh, I also borrowed these open sockets, but they're too weak. Like that goes over the thing, but as soon as you start turning, this actually opens up. And I've got what's it in my jig? I've got an injector spanner as well. That fits on there, but that's too weak also. Everything just wants to round this out. Let me just try this one more time actually. Now we're here. No, look, just see, that's just rounding. So I can't think of any other way to do this now. I cannot get to the other one on the turbo. I'm just gonna have to cut this line, maybe down here and then again up here. Then I'll be able to just get a socket on it. Wasn't even that difficult in the end. Once you can get a proper purchase on it. I wonder how much this pipe actually costs. £206. Oh, that hurts. The pipe I just cut is £206. Won't be doing that again. £206. Porsche parts are expensive. You know what I did notice when I was in here looking at parts? I noticed that there was a part number for a replacement block. They are available for 11 grand. 11 grand if you want a replacement block for this car. 11 grand. 200 odd quid just for this silly pipe. Yeah, no. Why is it the last thing gets stuck on that? No, get off. Please, thank you. Okay, so here is the turbocharger unit, and I've got my fingers in both sides. There's the tiniest little bit of play in the shaft. Now this car was putting out smoke. Not loads of smoke, but it was putting out smoke. And like I said, there was a lot of oil that came out of this. It was on this turbocharger on this side out of the intercooler. So it's still possible that this is a little bit faulty, but the wastegate doesn't feel too bad either. That's quite free. So it's like questions with the turbocharger, like what do you do with this? Do you just rebuild the engine and then refit this back up? Or because it's out and because it's in your hands, do you rebuild this, or do you just buy another turbocharger? These are all serious considerations when you're doing an engine rebuild. The engine is out. How far do you go? And a lot of it's going to be a question of budget, but you wouldn't want to, put a new block on this thing or put liners on it, do all that machining work, and then fit, these two turbos that were on it, just clean them up, fit them on, and then they blow, and then you've got to take all the engine out again, because it's an engine out job to do these turbos. It's just a lot of decisions, a lot of very strong, heavy financial decisions. So this is just such a funky kind of design. There's just so much stuff. And it's a wonder that more things don't go wrong on this. So I just pulled out all of the water pipes that were sat in there. So this is the water pump here. So water comes up there, through these pipes, through this one, through the ones that I just removed, and then into this thing, horseshoe, water horseshoe that goes across the top of the gearbox with all of this stuff that feeds down. It's just, there's just, the best way of describing this is that there's just stuff everywhere. So many little, more kind of PCV valves and vacuum lines and underneath all of this. And then obviously to top it all off, that's the starter motor there. So if you ever wanted to do the starter motor on this car, you'd have to take all of the inlet manifold off, all of those water pipes, this water horseshoe, and then the starter is right in there. And that's what I'm talking about when I say, you know, if you're rebuilding the engine, how far do you go? Do you bother getting a new starter as well? Because there might well be nothing wrong with this. But if there is, within 100 miles of rebuilding the engine, and you've got to take all of this off to get to it, that's why these things cost as much as they do to rebuild. And it's also why these cars are so cheap. It's why when the engine just go bad like that, I haven't even fully stripped this engine. It's when they go bad like that, people just go, I'm not fixing it. I'm not fixing it. You know, and I don't want to be cynical, but it is almost like these things are engineered to be hyper complex like this, so that you do kind of just throw it away and then buy a new car. Now, you know, I don't know if that's conspiratorial even, but you can't help but wonder it when you're stood here looking at it, because everything's just so difficult and hard to get to and fragile as well, if I'm honest with you. You know, if you've paid $2,000 for this car and the starter motor goes out, I mean, how much is this going to cost you to get fixed if you took it to a garage and you weren't doing the work yourself? There's the cost of the starter, which who knows how much that is. And then there's just all the labour. And then also, as I'm thinking now, it's why these cars are all in such bad condition, because people don't maintain them, because they buy them fairly cheap and then don't maintain them, because when they get the bill for doing things like this, just not economically viable. And then that's where I step in. And why do I do it? Why didn't I choose a channel called Economically Viable? Come on, water horseshoe, off you get, just get off. Yes. I mean, what is this? Ah! Son of a... Right, I've been at this for a very long time. I'm going home and I want to come back in the morning bright and early, refreshed. Okay, so it is the next day. Let me show you what I've done. Not a great deal, but AC compressor is off and the alternator is also off. Now, one thing I didn't realise was that this alternator is actually water cooled. Yes, it's a chrome socket. I know you've done it before. I know you've done it before. That's a timing chain setup. That's massive. So the first thing I'm seeing is that there's a lot of slack in the chain. Now, usually the chain tensioners work using oil pressure, and I imagine since I've been taking the engine apart, it's lost the oil pressure and the chain's gone slack, if I had to hazard a guess. And I think it's this. Okay, so yeah, look, on the back of the timing cover, that's the tensioner there, and so that very much does fit in there, and then that tensioner acts on that, pushes that up. So I imagine there was probably adequate tension on this chain when that was all fitted, but now that's off. Well, it's off. So these, I think, look like they just pull off. So that's what the guides look like. I don't think that's particularly worn, just by the looks of things. It looks all right still. which is crackers really, isn't it? You know, this engine's got 175,000 miles, and these plastic rails that have this metal chain just chafing on them the whole time, again and again and again, mile after mile after mile, seem to just hold out really quite well. These things, look, these are the same at the top there. And of course, all of this here, this is variable valve timing. I'm not sure what Porsche call their version of it, but that's what that is. And there's the chain, big old girl. Seems to be, just with the visual inspection at least, in decent condition. That's all I can really tell you. So then you've got this other sprocket here, driven off of the crank there. I imagine, no, I know that that is the oil pump that will sit down there in the sump. And then here's the final guide. Seems to be in good nick, to be honest with you. And now that I've got the front timing cover off, it means now we can remove these camshafts and all of this timing gear here, and then take the head off, and then finally get our eyes into the bores. Exhaust cam. Well, some of the exhaust cam, the bits that wanted to hang around. And yeah, you know, as we saw earlier on, it's in good nick. Okay, another good camshaft with all of this gubbins attached to it. Then just using a magnet, we can pull out all of the, what's it called? Buckets, schmuckets. If you can hear that weird noise, that is the squirrels on the roof. Seem to be seated in there very well. There's no play or anything. I don't know if you do get play in these or what, but right, so the head is basically in two parts. This is, when I was saying I'm taking the head off, I didn't mean it. This is the camshaft carrier, and that's what it looks like. You see the camshaft obviously riding there, and now I've actually now exposed all of the valve springs. Now we can take the head off. Is this going to be easy or hard? Is this going to fall off the subframe and the axle stands? Oh, no, easy. And I am aware that there's probably a special order in which you undo all of these bolts, but nice. Okay, eyes on the prize. Eyes on the prize. Oh, right. Oh, oil everywhere. Oil everywhere. Oh, no, put it down there. Drain off. Drain off. Right, what have we got? Right. Right. Where's my... Right, you are. Right, you are. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, we have got bore scoring until your heart is content in here. So bad that you can dig your nail into it. On these three, no, and on here, all 4 cylinders on this side have got really bad bore scoring. Okay, so there we have it. Cylinders 6, 7 and 8. Now, I don't need to point out where the bore scoring is. You can see the bore scoring. If I rotate the engine, you can see quite how pervasive it really is. This front cylinder, cylinder 5, oh no, it is bad. There, you can see it. But these other ones are way worse. It's not too bad. These other cylinders are just horrendous. This one here. So these are the ones that had the losses on the leak down test, and these also had low compression, these two cylinders here. And you can understand why. Look at that scoring. And then this end cylinder, you can see, look, that one's actually got it a little bit there, but nowhere near as bad as these two. And so to give you an idea, because it's difficult on camera, so that there you can see it's a nice smooth surface. Now if you were to do that here, you can't do it. It's actually that deep. You can get your nail into all of the grooves. So this front piston, I can wiggle it ever so slightly, and it must be the piston rings there, a little bit of spring in the piston rings. If I do the same on this one, you see how much movement there is? You can hear it. Look at that. And then on this one, it's loose in the bore. And then let's get this back one, piston 8. There's a bit, but no, again, not as much. Nothing like that. So I do wonder if that's the knocking noise. That is piston slap. When the piston's basically just slapping around in the bores. I mean, look, it's so loose. Do it with one finger. Right, so here's the thing with an engine rebuild like this. It's basically a case of where do you stop? So you see a load of those ancillaries that are on the engine. You've got the alternator, the power steering pump, but the way everything is tucked down into the sides. All of these parts, the turbochargers, they're all incredibly difficult to get at with the engine in the car. Removing the engine is not something you want to keep doing if you just want to change your alternator out or anything like that. So you have to say to yourself, this engine's got 175,000 miles on it. What parts do I replace whilst the engine is out? If we're going to do this, if you're going to rebuild the engine, you know, how many second-hand parts or the existing parts do you want to refit? I think you'd be okay with things like the crankshaft, the camshafts, you'd refit the heads. But other than that, you're going to want probably a new alternator. As a remanufactured one, second-hand, 650 pounds on the computer there. You know, the cost starts to add up. And what I'm not even factoring into account here is the price of any of the machining work that I actually need. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call a local company.
Hello, First and Engineering.
Hiya, mate. I'm calling because I was wondering if you might be able to just give me some kind of ballpark figures for some engine machining that I need. It's got bore scoring. So a lot of them suffer from it. So ideally, I'd need it boring out and sleeves fitting in each of the cylinders, and then I suppose you know, the heads are going to need skimming and, you know, pressure testing and that sort of stuff.
So what we'd probably do then is just with the cylinder heads, we would get them in, clean them up, and then inspect them and see what they need, and then we'd get back to you with an estimate email of prices and timescales.
Got you.
And then for the sleeves on, does it need 8 liners in it?
Yeah, it will do. Yeah, I mean, there's only boring on a few that I can see, but these blocks are renowned for scoring, so I'd do all 8.
Have you thought about rebore instead of liners?
I have, but apparently on these engines, just from what I'm told, I'm not telling you how to do your job. Just from what I've told, that they do repair liners because of the material of the block. Something to do with alusil and stuff. It's kind of like, you know, the only proper fix is to actually just like cast iron sleeve it. Otherwise, it will happen again probably. So.
Yeah, it's not a problem. That's a very tough thing to give you a price estimate on.
it'll all be based on time.
Yeah.
And obviously time plus that plus labour. We charge £100 an hour plus that, and I expect that to take at least, that's just the cylinders and the liners. That's a solid day's work.
Yeah.
And then the heads, obviously, we'll estimate you for the heads, and then you let us know what you want us to crack on with. But I mean, in terms of price, yeah, a bare minimum just on the block is probably about £1,000 plus that.
Yeah.
Buddy, take care, and I hope to speak soon.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Cheers, Rod. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye. So you've got to be looking at about £2,000 once you add the tax on, you know, £2,500 probably to do the machining work on this engine. So you can just absolutely see why people just scrap these cars. It's a £450 car. And look, let me just estimate what I think this will be in parts. Just really, really rough, like really rough. Right, so this is super duper rough. So I'm saying things like all new pistons. So there are companies that sell, because these engines go bad, you can buy all of the gaskets and the pistons and everything as a kit. This is a new alternator. This is reconditioned turbos, which I've found some companies, they're about £350 per turbo. I'm giving myself £1,000 for just stuff that I haven't even thought about. It's about £800 for a non-Porsche timing chain kit. You'd probably want a Porsche one, I don't know, or just a good brand. Some bits and bobs, I'm just kind of looking at what I can see out there. And then once you factor all that in, that's in parts alone, that's over £4,000. Plus the 2.5 for the machining. £6,500, really conservative estimate, £6,500 to rebuild this engine all in once you've done all of those bits. You know, and then the gearbox is out. Do I get the torque converter rebuilt? £250. It's just £6,500. I mean, you've got to think about what you can buy for £6,500. And don't forget as well, £6,500, I'm just assuming that I'm gonna rebuild it. So if you want to rebuild an engine yourself, we're talking about machining and parts is £6,500. Now, if you were going to take it to someone else to rebuild, now you can fully understand when I got that quote for £15,000. It completely makes sense, doesn't it? 15 grand, yeah, it sounds about right, doesn't it? 15 grand to rebuild this engine, have someone else rebuild it. 6.5 grand if I build it. Obviously, I'm not pricing my labour there either. Right, so 6.5 grand. I mean, on the conservative side, as I said. Now, you know, what are the other options for this car? Well, you can go out, I could go out now and buy a replacement engine. But the problem with these engines is that Porsche never admitted that there was a problem. And so this whole generation of Cayenne never got fixed. These 955s, these early ones, the pre-facelift ones, some fail with 20,000 miles on it and some fail at 175,000 miles. From what I can tell with all my research and looking in the forums and everything, you just cannot tell when your engine is going to do it. And so if you go on to eBay and have a look at how many engines there are, Cayenne Turbo engines for sale, you will see there are almost none available for sale because no one even bothers going to the effort of selling them because they know there's going to be very few buyers because you don't know if your replacement engine is just going to get bore scoring 20 miles down the road after you replace the engine. That's why these cars are so cheap. They're scrap because what do you do with this now? What do you do with it? That is a cool t-shirt.
Right. Oh my god, it's a state in here.
I did say it got a bit messy.
Okay, I know, but when you said that, I wasn't quite expecting this.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we will eat in the car. What?
Yeah. It got a bit, yeah. It's organised chaos. I know where everything is.
Right.
But it does.
How? How the hell?
Well, because look,
Look at the size of it.
Yeah, I know, it's massive, isn't it? I've been putting all of the nuts and bolts into labelled bags.
That's a first.
Yeah, not like the Vivaro van.
Bolt, I can't find it. I don't know where it's gone. It just moved it somewhere.
Can you see all of that in there? That's bore scoring. It's like just metal on metal. Imagine you were just scraping down the side of these walls with another piece of metal and all the scoring.
Is that really definitely what's happened to this?
Yeah. That's what's bad, and you've got it in all of those cylinders. I haven't got to the other side yet.
So how does something like that happen?
How does something like that happen? Well, on these on these particular engines, it's because the aluminium block. So this is the block. It's got an element in the aluminium itself called alusil, which is a trade name for something. And my understanding is they added it to the block because these bores here, they need to be low friction and very hard wearing because they've got the pistons coming up and down, you know, with all of the forces and the heat and everything and combustion going on in here. The alusil that's actually in the block itself was just not a good thing to add to a block, and it breaks down and it causes this scoring. That's the best guess. A lot of engines, you see this bit here, a lot of engines have like a separate sleeve that goes inside there that's made of like cast iron or you know, is plated. Yeah. And a lot of engines, they have this bit here plated, some kind of plating. This doesn't. This has the kind of plating in the actual block, so it's in every vroom vroom. Yeah, you like your cars, don't you? Actually, on the topic of him liking cars, they see me rolling, they hating.
So what we're saying is this the Cayenne dream dead then?
Yes, but no. It's a
but no.
yes,
Okay.
but no. Yeah. So you
Explain. What does that mean?
Yes, but no, because technically yes, this can be rebuilt.
Right.
But your Cayenne dream with this particular car,
It's dead.
it probably is dead. We'll get you something sorted. I promise.
Sure.
No. I promise. I'll get you a cool car. I will get you a cool car. Right, and that is very clearly the engine on the engine stand now. I know there's thousands of you wondering why on earth it's taken me till now to put it on the engine stand. The simple reason is the bolts that I ordered to connect the engine stand to the engine, I ordered the wrong ones to begin with, so I've just been waiting for those to turn up. Nothing more complex than that. It is good now though that it's on the engine stand. I can get around it all properly. Removed the turbo on this side. With the camshafts out on this right hand bank, I do have some findings. First thing, this is the intake camshaft. I don't know if the camera, hopefully the camera's picking that up, but this one here, this journal here is really scored. I can get my fingernail in that scoring through a glove. That's really quite pronounced. And if you look at a load of the other journals, hopefully the camera's picking it up, but there's quite a lot of scoring. They're all of these, not the lobes necessarily. The lobes, these cam lobes, they're all good. It's these. They've got quite heavy scoring on. This one, I can't get my nail in it, but I can definitely feel that the scoring is there. Same with this one. It seems to be only this one I can actually get my nail in that centre, in the centre bit there. Then we've got the exhaust camshaft, and look at that. Look how much scoring there is on that camshaft there. That's quite a lot. Same on this one, and then same on this centre one. I can't get my nail in any of them on this camshaft. No, I can't get my nail in it, but again, you can feel it's there, and then obviously you can see that is quite badly scored. And then if we look at the corresponding part of the cam carrier, this is where the intake cam is, and you can see that scoring in there also. So that's quite deep scoring. I can get my fingernail right into that, and then you can see that it's just scoring on all of them. So this is something, if this engine was to be rebuilt, this would absolutely have to get sorted. You know, what's the cause of this? Some kind of oil starvation? Is that what it is? And you can see that it's scoring down here on the exhaust journals. The other thing to note that I can see as well, so if you can see how much each of these, are they called buckets? How much they protrude out of the cam carrier. You can see they're all dead uniform. And so obviously with the camshafts out, all of these valves are up, they're closed. And so all of these are protruding out by the exact same amount. Apart from this one, you can see how this is, just comparing the two there, you can see how this one is protruding out the same amount as all the others, but this one is flush. And so it's sitting in. It's impossible for you to see, but I can see the valve in there, and the valve looks to be closed. So when you look at that, you'd expect the valve to maybe be a little bit open still. It doesn't seem to be the case if I put my finger in there, so we'll have to investigate that. Next, I'm going to pull off this cam carrier, pull all these buckets out, get the cam carrier off, and then we'll have a look at the underside. Okay, and interesting to note that there's nothing visually wrong with this valve down here that had that wonky bucket. It feels just as kind of taut as all of these other valves. And I can see that the valve is closed. These are all the top of the valve. They're all at the same level. So if you take a look inside of the bucket, so this is that one, the gammy one, and if you compare it to a good one, you can just see how, I don't know the technical names, so do excuse me, that bit in the middle there is more recessed than this one. This protrudes more, so it looks like the issue was with this, so that's interesting. That's what the underside of it looks like. So you can see that valve is indeed closed all of the way. Yeah, I mean, nothing too bad. There's quite a bit of build up of carbon on these valves though, that is for sure. There's a lot of build up of stuff. And this is not a direct injected engine. So this could all do with a massive clean if you were going to reuse these valves. But other than that, it all kind of looks okay visually. And now what I really want to see are these bores. What's the old bore scoring like on this side? Well, I can tell you that these pistons are rusty. There's a load of rust. There's loads of like, big bits of rust in there. So that's cool. We have bore scoring on every cylinder. This one's not too bad at all. Well, kinda. Got it on here quite badly. Cylinder 4 here is about the worst one of the bunch. Again, you can feel it with your nail. I can feel that with my nail. You can see that there's loads of rust in there. These pistons are dirty. Turn it over a bit. You can see you've got bore scoring in there. And then you've also got it here on number 1. Oops. In fact, that there, can you see that at the top? That's a massive gouge. I can get my finger, I can get my whole finger in it, not my fingernail. That's a massive gouge out there. So I wonder if that was, you know, bits of rust in there, and then we fired the engine up and it dug in. And then if I do my little wiggle test, can't be wiggled. Can't be wiggled. The tiniest amount, but again, I think that's the piston rings just taking up some slack. No, No. If I've moved them. No. No. And what I'm really looking forward to is spinning this engine over and having even more fluid dump out onto the floor, because no doubt, even if I put this drip tray there, I'm going to miss it. Oh my word, I actually caught it. No way. Right. Wow. Wow. Right, come to that in a second. But under here, yeah. Oh my word. So we've got 2 oil pickups. Let's obviously just address that. So you can see all of this. I mean, what is that? That looks like kind of old RTV or something. Now, I'm instantly wondering if, so this strainer's picked up all of that, it's impeded the flow of oil, and that's why we've got that scoring on the cams. It's just been starved of oil because it probably couldn't build proper oil pressure, I imagine. So if you pull all of that out, I mean, the question is, where did this actually come from? I don't know. But yeah, look, that's absolutely going to have been impeding the flow of oil. And this other strainer there, can you see that? That's just a big chunk, massive great chunk of metal that's stuck in there. So I imagine there's a load of metal in here. Now I can't see any metal in here underneath. However, let's come down. If we take a look in the sump, it is a completely different story. So if I shove my finger down there and I start scraping some of this out, just take a look. Oh, can I grab it? It's very slippy, unsurprisingly. Here it is, look. It's chunks of, well, that's plastic actually, as it happens. So I don't know what that is. Something's broken off. That's plastic. We've got metal in there. I can feel all the metal. Don't know if you can see that on a black glove, but there's big chunks of metal in there. Whoa, whoa. Look at that. Wow. Look at that for a chunk of metal. Whew. That's something else. Another one there. Another one there. Okay, so there's definitely a load of damage in this engine. So what I want to do next, I'll need to pull this whole tray out, and then hopefully that will give us access to the crank and the connecting rods. Oh yeah. Oh, there we go. There is the crank and the pistons and the con rods. Oh, right. I'm sweating. What have we got? What have we got? Okay, so I can't see any damage to the crank just by looking at it. Although having said that, when I actually look at this part, so this has got the bearings in here, the other part for the crank journals there. They are very scored. Like I can get my fingernails in all of them. That's not good. There you go, that you can see that. It's just a whole load of scoring on these bearings. God, look at that. That one's pitted. That one's pitted to the max. There's just a huge gouge in it. That's not much better. You can hear my nail in it. So that wouldn't have done the actual crank journals a favour. There's no scoring that I can get my nail in, but yeah, I don't know, this would have to be looked at by professionale. Now it's very important to keep the connecting rod, the caps, with its corresponding connecting rod, because they are matched, and I think these caps, they only fit one connecting rod basically in the world. So take these off, keep them together as pairs. And I know there's a whole load of you just looking at this mess on the floor and doing your heads in. Believe you me, it's doing my head in too, but I'm just trying to get through this as quick as possible so I can actually post this video. And then if I ever do this again, I'll make sure that I have some kind of better setup to collect all of this coolant and oil. But I wouldn't worry too much. It's not you that's got to hoover it all up and mop up, so don't worry about it. I know it's dirty and I wouldn't work like this again. Okay, and there's the first piston out. Wow. Wow. Check this out. Whoa. Look at the scoring on that piston. That's completely trash. Wow, what's the other side like? The other side is not too bad. But that, look, this is what we're dealing with these engines. Whew. That's insane. That's absolutely bananas. No wonder there was so much metal in the oil and in the pan. I mean, there's actual craters taken out of that. Which piston's this? That's piston number 5. Wow. Wow. Right, let's get the rest of them out. Right, you are not going to believe the damage that I've just uncovered. So to begin with, I pulled off a load of the bearings. Loads of these are just scored. I can get my nail in it. And some of these crank journals, I can get my nail in that as well. They're all scored. Get my nail in there. So this crank looks like it's absolutely done for. So I think we've got 2 issues with this engine, I'm quite confident to say. I think we've had some kind of oil starvation due to the clogged pickup. You can see it on these journals, and obviously you saw it on the cam journals. I think that's issue number 1. Look at it, it's just terrible. And then issue number 2, check this out. So we've got pistons 1, 2, 3 and 4. These aren't too bad. You can see that there's evidence of scoring on the skirts of piston 1 there. 2 is about the same. They all look identical, but this is just so these are the pistons from the bank that we were having trouble with. Cylinder 5, 6, 7, 8. Look at piston 6. Look at that. I hope that's coming out on camera, but that's just, oh, look at it. It is a divot. It's a crater. One massive crater taken out of there. Oh. The other side isn't too bad, but wait, it gets worse. Piston 7, that side's not too bad, but feast your eyes upon that. Look at it. I mean, we've basically got a cracked piston. If I show you from there, you can see how much metal has been taken out from around that side there, where it just goes thinner there. Look at it. Look at that. It hasn't gone all the way through. You can't see it through the backside. But that's nigh on a hole in the piston. It's so close to being a hole in the piston. Look at it. And again, obviously, that lower ring there is absolutely toast as well. And then piston number 8. It's not as bad as the others. We saw that from the actual bore scoring. But, you know, it's still bad. But that is the absolute star of the show. I'm going to be completely honest with you, I did not think this engine was going to be as damaged as it has turned out to be. at the beginning when I started digging into this. Now we're at the stage where it's like, you know, full absolute full engine rebuild would be necessary to get this engine running again. I've been through some of the costs with you. I think it's higher than some of the figures that I've quoted. I don't think I'm going to rebuild this engine, lads, or guys and girls. Like, I don't think I'm going to rebuild this engine. That is a lot of money. I'm not prepared to spend it. I think the only way this engine gets rebuilt is if somebody else foots the bill. I've now got to work out what on earth I do with this car, whether I put just a replacement engine in it, or I don't know, to be honest with you. You know my policy, I don't do scrapping of cars, but you know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you're probably going to enjoy this one also. Let me know what you think in the comments as ever, and I'll see you soon.